membre de l'Académie pour la participation des personnes réfugiées en France et également membre de la délégation des 70 réfugiés experts qui ont participé au Forum mondial des réfugiés de 2023. We also have Mr. Nicolas Bras, the Senior Policy Advisor and the brand new head of the JCR coordination team in UNHCR. He will introduce himself later and will also provide an update on the GRF follow-up. And finally, of course, we have, as always, Ms. Mercedes Jacobi of the Governance Service in UNHCR, who is supporting us as the secretary for the briefing. Thank you, Mercedes. I would like to now invite Ambassador Bonafont to give his opening remarks. Over to you, Ambassador.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Haute Commissaire assistante. Chère Madame la Haute Commissaire assistante, chère Madame Agieux online, cher Monsieur Brass, bienvenue dans vos nouvelles fonctions. Chère Madame la chef du protocole, Mesdames et Messieurs les délégués, chers collègues, Mesdames, Messieurs, permettez-moi de commencer avec une pensée tragique pour les victimes de l'horrible accident survenu hier dans la Manche qui a coûté la vie à 12 personnes. Nous sommes, je crois, tous conscients du terrible prix humain que payent ceux qui, portés par le désespoir et la nécessité, sont condamnés à se mettre entre les mains de passeurs dont l'activité criminelle consiste à s'enrichir sur la misère humaine en tenant pour rien les dangers auxquels ils exposent ceux qu'ils exploitent. Toutes nos condoléances à leurs familles. Nul n'ignore l'extrême difficulté auxquelles sont confrontés les réfugiés, chassés de leur pays par les conflits ou l'oppression. Nul n'ignore aussi le défi posé aux pays et aux communautés qui les accueillent, alors même que leurs propres conditions de vie ne sont pas toujours faciles. Et le Haut-Commissariat aux réfugiés, c'est l'expression d'une volonté d'humanité, de solidarité, de fraternité avec celles et ceux que le destin pousse sur les routes de l'exil. C'est aussi l'exigence d'un immense professionnalisme pour traiter avec efficacité, précision et bienveillance tout autant les populations qu'il a à sa charge. Mais il ne saurait y avoir d'action humanitaire efficace sans être animé par l'espoir. Et à ce titre, Paris est encore cet été le lieu d'une belle leçon à l'occasion de l'accueil des Jeux Olympiques du 28 juillet au 11 août, puis des Jeux Paralympiques du 28 août au 8 septembre. Certaines images en particulier resteront gravées dans nos mémoires. Je pense à ce bateau, apparu au début de la cérémonie d'ouverture, portant à son bord la délégation olympique des réfugiés. Je pense aux lauriers olympiques décernés au haut-commissaire Grandi lors de cette cérémonie, lauriers qui vont à toutes celles et ceux, professionnels et volontaires, qui font le haut-commissariat aux réfugiés. Je pense surtout aux médailles qui, pour la première fois, ont récompensé les efforts d'athlètes réfugiés, Cindy Ngamba, Zakia Koudadadi, Guillaume Junior Atangana et Donald Ndim Diemdjoua, qu'ils m'excusent pour avoir écorché leur nom. C'est la première fois que des athlètes réfugiés sont médaillés et c'est un symbole d'espoir. Pour des millions de personnes déplacées de force à travers le monde, c'est aussi un message adressé à nos pays et à nos sociétés qui montre que l'inclusion est une chance pour les réfugiés, mais aussi pour ceux qui les accueillent. Les politiques d'inclusion, et ce fut au cœur des débats du Forum mondial, permettent aux réfugiés de développer leurs compétences et de redevenir pleinement acteurs de leur vie, qu'ils s'installent dans leur pays d'accueil ou qu'ils décident librement de retourner dans leur pays d'origine. Nous devons continuer de nous battre pour soutenir les pays hôtes qui s'engagent et mettent en place des politiques d'inclusion. C'est un engagement que nous avons pris ensemble, États, organisations, entreprises, lors du Forum mondial sur les réfugiés, et je souhaite une nouvelle fois, Madame la Haute-Commissaire assistante, féliciter le Haut-Commissaire et les équipes du Haut-Commissariat pour le succès de ce forum, qui, en dépit d'un contexte politique difficile, marqué par les conflits, marqué par la polarisation et les tensions, a su rassembler autour d'un agenda de dialogue, de coopération et de réengagement à mettre en œuvre la Convention de 1951 relative au statut de réfugié, qui demeure notre loi fondamentale à nous tous qui croyons à la spécificité de statut de réfugié. La France est pleinement mobilisée en tant que coparrain du Forum. J'ai évoqué le sport. Nous sommes fiers d'avoir appuyé la préparation de l'équipe paralympique des réfugiés avant la cérémonie d'ouverture. De nombreux programmes permettent d'apporter un soutien aux athlètes réfugiés dans notre pays. Je pense par exemple au programme Terrain d'avenir, développé avec l'Olympic Refugee Foundation et 6 associations qui aident les personnes déplacées à développer un nouveau projet de vie grâce au sport. Lors du forum, la France a pris d'autres engagements dans d'autres domaines, y compris sur le plan financier. En 3 ans, la France a triplé sa contribution financière au Haut Commissariat. Elle s'est élevée à 120 millions d'euros en 2023 et nous continuons notre soutien en 2024. L'Agence française de développement, quant à elle, s'est engagée à mener des projets d'appui aux populations déplacées et réfugiées pour 150 millions d'euros sur 4 ans. La France met aussi en place des politiques ambitieuses pour l'inclusion des réfugiés accueillis sur son sol, que ce soit en matière d'apprentissage du français, d'accès au logement, d'opportunités de formation professionnelle. Au 31 décembre 2023, près de 600 000 personnes bénéficiaient en France de la protection internationale. Enfin, nous savons les risques particuliers auxquels les femmes et les filles réfugiées sont confrontées, et c'est pour leur venir en aide que la France a lancé l'initiative Avec elles, dont j'avais eu l'occasion de parler en de précédents forums, avec le concours de dizaines d'États, d'organisations internationales et non gouvernementales, d'universités et d'entreprises. On peut citer l'organisation non gouvernementale SysTech, qui forme des femmes réfugiées au codage pour leur permettre d'exercer des métiers dans la programmation. Dans le cadre de cette initiative, nous nous sommes engagés à réinstaller en France des réfugiés femmes particulièrement isolées et vulnérables, notamment des femmes afghanes dont nous savons les persécutions absolument inacceptables auxquelles elles sont soumises. Grâce à l'excellente coopération avec le HCR, cet engagement sera tenu d'ici la fin de l'année. Mais j'ai trop parlé, je vous remercie de votre attention et je suis heureux de céder la parole à Madame Aidjou en ligne pour qu'elle nous parle de son expérience en tant que réfugiée et de son engagement pour venir en aide aux autres réfugiés. Madame Aidjou, chère Elvira, merci infiniment d'être à nos côtés à distance. Nous vous écoutons, si vous permettez, Madame la Présidente.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur l'ambassadeur, Madame la haute commissaire, Mesdames et Messieurs, je vous remercie pour l'invitation. C'est un honneur pour moi d'être à nouveau parmi vous et de pouvoir partager avec vous mon parcours et mes engagements. Lauréate de la première académie pour la participation des personnes réfugiées créée par la France, j'étais fière d'être retenue comme experte réfugiée par le HCR pour l'organisation du Forum mondial sur les réfugiés. Depuis des années, je suis engagée auprès des réfugiés en France et je me bats pour eux. Mon but, c'est d'améliorer les conditions de leur accueil et de leur intégration socio-professionnelle. En 2017, à Tours, j'ai conduit l'installation de la première antenne de l'association Codico, une association qui avait pour but d'accompagner les réfugiés dans toutes les démarches de l'insertion professionnelle, en partenariat avec les instances publiques et les entreprises du territoire. En février 2022, quand la guerre a été déclenchée en Ukraine, la ville de Tours a fait appel à moi afin de mettre en place un dispositif pour héberger et accompagner les 800 déplacés ukrainiens venus en Touraine, la plupart des femmes et des enfants. À présent, je suis à la fin d'une formation qui me permettra de devenir directrice d'établissement médico-social en France. Ma propre expérience de réfugié et mon expérience du terrain auprès des personnes réfugiées m'a montré que la plupart des personnes réfugiées ont passé par un parcours pré-migratoire et post-migratoire très lourd qui touche particulièrement leur santé mentale et physique. Le changement de statut social a aussi des conséquences sur leur estime en soi, mais ils trouvent la force, le courage, la résilience pour faire face à ces obstacles et avancer dans la vie. Pour les aider, l'apprentissage de la langue, l'accès à un logement, aux études, au travail et aux soins, c'était primordial pour moi. En 10 ans en France et 7 ans d'expérience professionnelle, j'ai vu le changement et l'amélioration des politiques d'accueil et d'intégration en France. La mise en place de l'académie, où je suis lauréate, a permis aux réfugiés de participer au programme et aux politiques qui les concernent. Le programme volontaire R, lancé en 2018, a contribué à l'intégration des 12 000 jeunes primo-arrivants dans des missions de service civique. Le contrat territorial d'accueil et d'intégration lancé par l'État, dont ma ville est signataire, a permis à plusieurs primo-arrivants d'avoir un accompagnement social. L'initiative avec elle, où j'ai eu l'honneur de participer et lancer à côté de l'ambassadeur en décembre, a contribué à féminiser les politiques publiques en lançant plusieurs appels à projets en faveur des femmes réfugiées. Le travail auprès des familles ukrainiennes m'a fait comprendre que la clé vers des solutions durables est de parvenir à faire travailler ensemble tous les acteurs. La mise en place par le gouvernement français de la cellule Ukraine a permis à plusieurs institutions et acteurs du territoire de collaborer afin de mieux répondre aux besoins des hommes, femmes et des filles ukrainiens. La directive 55 a permis aux Ukrainiens d'avoir une autorisation de travail, le droit d'une formation linguistique et professionnelle et un toit. Les résultats d'intégration et d'inclusion de ces personnes sont un exemple pour moi. Et en tant que professionnel auprès des publics étrangers, je pose aujourd'hui la question. Pourquoi pas donner cette opportunité à tous les demandeurs d'asile dès le dépôt de leur demande? Mesdames et messieurs, en regardant en arrière, je réalise le chemin parcouru en France, tant sur le plan personnel que professionnel. Ces 10 dernières années ont été marquées par des défis, des apprentissages et surtout par une profonde conviction, celle que chaque être humain mérite une chance d'intégration, de dignité et de respect. Aujourd'hui, alors que nous faisons face à des défis mondiaux sans précédent, je suis plus que jamais convaincue que l'inclusion des réfugiés ne peut se faire sans la coopération de tous les acteurs institutionnels, associatifs et citoyens. Les initiatives que j'ai eu l'honneur de mener, auxquelles j'ai contribué, montrent que lorsque nous travaillons ensemble, nous pouvons transformer des vies et construire un avenir plus solidaire. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Haichu, pour votre intervention. Et Monsieur l'ambassadeur, Madame Haichu, je vous remercie d'avoir donné un ton très constructif à cette séance d'information. Je salue aussi l'engagement constant de la France en sa qualité de coparrain du Forum mondial des réfugiés et de co-responsable de l'engagement multipartite avec elle. Je suis très encouragée par les progrès réalisés pour améliorer la protection et l'inclusion des femmes et des filles déplacées de force. Et j'apprécie également énormément l'engagement actif des gouvernements des pays d'accueil et des pays donateurs, ainsi que les contributions inestimables des organisations internationales, des universitaires, du secteur privé, des ONG et d'autres acteurs. Le naufrage tragique survenu dans le Manche hier, auquel a déjà fait référence Monsieur l'ambassadeur, et qui a coûté la vie à de nombreuses personnes, y compris des femmes et des enfants, nous rappelle l'importance de trouver des solutions urgentes et de continuer de travailler tous ensemble à tous les niveaux. Je souhaite par ailleurs remercier Madame Haïjou particulièrement de nous avoir fait part de son expérience remarquable qui a mis en lumière le pouvoir transformateur de l'inclusion et de la participation significative des réfugiés. Une collaboration étroite et constante avec des personnes ayant vécu l'expérience de déplacement forcé constitue un volet important de la réponse pour les réfugiés et leur permet d'influencer les programmes ayant un impact sur leur vie. Nous remercions la France et de nombreux autres États et parties prenantes d'être restés engagés et de leurs efforts pour maintenir une participation significative des réfugiés. Nous encourageons tous les autres partenaires à se joindre à cet effort important. Je voudrais également saisir cette occasion pour adresser à tous mes félicitations pour le succès des Jeux olympiques de Paris et des Jeux paralympiques qui sont actuellement en cours, que j'aurai l'immense honneur de rejoindre demain. Les performances remarquables de l'équipe olympique et paralympique des réfugiés et des athlètes ayant été réfugiés sont tout simplement inspirants. Le récit de résilience témoigne de la force constante des personnes déplacées de force, montrant que l'inclusion conduit non seulement à la participation, mais aussi à l'excellence. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the spirit of inclusion as exemplified by the Olympic Games is mirrored in many other facets of our societies. As a cornerstone of our humanity and its remarkable diversity, inclusion is like a process of weaving a rich tapestry that reflects the diverse social fabrics represented by people of varying talents, strengths, and backgrounds. For refugees, inclusion is the linchpin for self-reliance, which, once achieved, enables them to contribute meaningfully and productively to the societies that host them. Decades of research and data have proven that when refugees are given the opportunity, the long-term benefits to the host communities and countries are immense. Across the globe, we have witnessed exemplary efforts where the principles of the Global Compact on Refugees have been turned into action. For example, in Colombia, a collaboration between the government and the Interagency Group on Mixed Migration Flows has enabled over 1 million Venezuelans to access much-needed health services. In Jordan, access to the public healthcare system was expanded to all refugees of all nationalities. In Iran, over 800,000 Afghan and Iraqi refugee children were enrolled in primary and secondary education just last year. In the United States, as part of the Welcome Corps initiative, 18 universities are including the first cohort of refugee students this fall to continue their higher education. In Georgia, a 2019 GRF pledge to ease access to naturalization has been fulfilled by reducing the required residence period and introducing the waiver of the required fees, making the path to citizenship more accessible. And in Zambia, the local integration program has provided legal residency, access to land, and opportunities for over 18,000 former refugees from Angola and Rwanda to live independently and contribute to the local economies. The list is endless. These are not just some isolated successes. They are scalable models that can be adapted and replicated across different contexts, demonstrating that when we invest in inclusion, we are not just helping refugees survive, but enabling them to contribute and to enrich the societies that welcome them. And taking an inclusive approach allows refugees and local communities to foster social cohesion and mutual understanding, laying the foundation for long-term stability. Indeed, the integration of refugees is a long-term effort, which requires consistent engagement of all levels of political structures and societies. Furthermore, low and middle-income refugee hosting countries need new and sustained support from the international community to implement the policy pledges to enhance refugee inclusion, continuing to match financial, technical, and material support with policy pledges is critical. And I encourage all stakeholders to focus efforts around matching when working towards a high-level officials meeting to be convened in December 2025, including through the various multi-stakeholder pledges. As we look forward to the high-level officials meeting next year and the next Global Refugee Forum in 2027, we must renew our commitment to expanding these initiatives, ensuring that inclusion becomes a norm rather than the exception. One of the very important upcoming milestones is the high-level segment on statelessness that will be held as part of the UNHCR Executive Committee meeting next month. This event will commemorate the 70th anniversary of the 1961 Statelessness Convention, mark the 10th year milestone of the I Belong campaign, and launch the Global Alliance Against Statelessness. Your active participation in this event is crucial as we work collectively to address the plight of stateless people around the world. In closing, let me emphasize that inclusion is not just about opening doors for refugees. It is about building bridges between people and communities. It is about fostering a global environment where everyone, regardless of their background, has the opportunity to thrive. Together, we can transform the spirit of solidarity that is anchored in the GCR into lasting change, creating a world where refugees are not just included, but also empowered to contribute to our shared future. Thank you. I would now like to hand the floor over to Mr. Nicolas Bras, Senior Policy Advisor and Head of the GCR Community Coordination Team, for his remarks. Over to you, Nicolas.
Thank you, Assistant High Commissioner. Your Excellencies, Mr. l'Ambassadeur, Assistant High Commissioner, dear colleagues, allow me to start by saying how honored I am to be here with you today for this third informal briefing on the Global Compact on Refugees. I took up my function over a month ago, and I feel really privileged to be able to now work more closely on the GCR implementation, together with so many partners, many of whom are in the room or online with us today. I joined UNHCR over 17 years ago, and I served in various capacities in last refugee hosting countries, in regional bureaus, but also at headquarters. My most recent assignments were with the Regional Bureau for Europe, where I led UNHCR's external engagement work. And I think I have had the opportunity to meet many of you in the room in this capacity, as well as with the Regional Bureau for Asia and the Pacific, where I had the opportunity to engage with many colleagues on the Global Compact work and the GRF 2023, in particular with respect to the two multi-stakeholder pledges for Afghan and Rohingya refugee situations. And I have to say, even based from quite far away from Geneva, we were following the GRF from remote, and we could feel the same positive vibes and spirit as many of you did in Geneva. And it was extremely inspiring and motivating to see so many partners, including refugees, come together and really strive to work to better respond to refugee situations and work towards solutions to their situations. I feel also extremely proud to join a most amazing team, and many of my colleagues are in the room today. And you can imagine how excited I am to be able to work even more closely with many of you. And I would like in particular to thank Pervin Ali, who made sure to really made sure that I would get the most comprehensive handover until the very last minute of her time on the position, as well as Ziad Ayad, who is with us today, but connecting from Canada, and who double-hatted for the past few months until I joined. Last, I would like to thank you, of course, Assistant High Commissioner, for your trust, and you can all rest assured that myself and the colleagues will do our best to make sure that the coordination team will continue to deliver on its role and support all of you in advancing the compact objectives, including, of course, our own colleagues on the ground. Now, with the GRF 2023 being 8 months behind us, you will not be surprised in hearing me saying that we really need to focus our efforts on pledge implementation and matching, as you said, Assistant High Commissioner. We do continue to keep track of pledge implementation, and I'm pleased to report that prior to 2023, as of today, 4 out of 10 pledges have been fulfilled. Pledging is a continuous process, and it was not just a one-off event at the various forums. Since the beginning of the year, we have recorded, we checked the data yesterday, 257 new pledges, 52 since the last informal briefing we had together in June. We also continue to receive good practices throughout 2024, and we really encourage you all to continue submitting your projects on how you are supporting refugees on the dedicated digital platform, which I believe you are all familiar with. Now, around the corner, our corner, is the next key milestone for the Global Compact process, which is stock taking. We will be sending more guidance in the coming weeks, but we know that many of you are already preparing those stock taking moments in the coming month and early next year, and which is why I would like to share a few more details and objective of the process. Stock taking is a fundamental component of the Global Compact implementation process. It brings together stakeholders to reflect on progress made towards the achievement of the Compact's 4 objectives. What does it include? Of course, it includes reporting on the individual pledges, but as well as on our respective engagements in the various initiatives foreseen in the Compacts, as well as the support platforms, for instance. It will also be informed by multi-stakeholder analysis of trends in terms of results and gaps, and complemented by the evidence base captured through the GCR indicator framework and the biennial reports. The findings of our collective stock-taking process will help us and the international community as a whole to review the results and impacts, but also to identify areas in need of further support. It will, of course, also help us determine if and where we need to course correct and inform the way forward in terms of pledge implementation, but also in terms of new pledge articulation. In this regard, reporting on pledge implementation is therefore essential. And we really call upon all of you as pledging entities to submit an update whenever progress is made. We, the GCR coordination team, we are doing the global outreach twice a year, whereby we send a reminder to all pledging entities to report back on the implementation and progress made against their respective pledge. The next reminder will come shortly, next month in October, and we really call upon all of you to respond to this request. And please let us know if the respective focal points have changed so we can update the database accordingly. And of course, I would like to thank all of those of you who have already reported on pledge implementation, and there are quite a few. So thank you so much for that. We as UNHCR, of course, we will continue fulfilling our catalytic role in facilitating the stock-taking process at various levels, of course, here at the global one, but also in the regions and at country level. And you can count on UNHCR to really support this endeavor. Maintenant, j'aimerais dire quelques mots en français pour conclure. Vous aurez peut-être remarqué que ma langue maternelle n'est pas forcément l'anglais. J'aimerais remercier son Excellence, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur, ainsi que Madame Adjou pour leurs remarques extrêmement inspirantes sur le thème de l'inclusion. Et je pense que le parallèle fait avec les Jeux Olympiques est on ne peut plus pertinent dans la mesure où les valeurs de l'olympisme se rapprochent de celles du pacte et du forum. J'ai moi-même eu l'occasion d'amener ma famille voir certaines épreuves des Jeux Olympiques à Paris, y compris celles où des réfugiés participaient. Et je dois avouer que de voir l'effet que cette participation avait dans les tribunes, mais aussi au travers de retours d'amis ou de membres de nos familles, démontre que nos approches et nos efforts ne sont pas vains. I thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to working with you all. Thank you, Assistant High Commissioner. I pass the floor back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Brass. We will now hear from a number of multi-stakeholder pledgers, which are contributing to inclusion and self-reliance for refugees, and to the other GCR objectives through a variety of enabling measures. We do ask the speakers to kindly limit your interventions to 5 minutes to ensure that there is adequate time for discussion. We will first hear from the Human Settlements Pledge, which will be presented by Mr. Daniel Tenkiraga, Minister, Permanent Mission of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia to the UN in Geneva. Mr. Targa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. Thank you, Ambassador, for your intervention and for the updates. Congratulations for the successful Olympic Games. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to take the floor on behalf of Ethiopia and UN Habitat, the co-leaders of the multi-stakeholder pledge on human settlements for refugees and their hosting communities to share updates and next steps. This multi-stakeholder pledge, launched for the first time at the GRF 2023, set out two ambitious targets. First, to promote and implement a sustainable and integrated approach to environmental and climate action mainstreaming, shelter, housing, land, access to basic services, governance, and improved urban planning for the development of climate resilient, sustainable human settlement for refugees and their host communities. Second, to mobilize all stakeholders to raise visibility and ensure improved coordinated efforts. The pledge is framed around 6 thematic priorities. 1, urban planning and management, policy, legislation and governance, housing and shelter, basic services, economy and finance, environment and climate action. To date, the Human Settlement Pledge has received 47 submissions from 38 entities. The depth and dedication of these commitments are truly remarkable. So far, it has received 15 ambitious policy pledges from countries at the forefront of displacement and climate crisis, including Ethiopia, Kenya, Mauritania, Uganda, South Sudan, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Benin, Niger, and Mozambique. 24 pledges were linked to providing technical and material support. 9 financial pledges were made by Austria, Germany, Denmark, and foundations like Grundfos and Lego, targeting primarily to match the commitments of Kenya, Ethiopia, and Uganda. This highlights the need for us to support those who have made pledges and haven't received the necessary support yet. The core group is actively supporting existing commitments, expanding and promoting the concepts of human settlements. We have identified additional policy pledges that support the human settlement thematic priorities. We are also exploring the potential financial match. If confirmed, this would bring the total number of contributing pledges to 70. Key highlights and updates from the countries. We are seeing significant progress from the pledging countries. I will provide a few examples. In my country, in Ethiopia, Melkadida Refugee Compact 2024 up to 2027 is a community-owned and governmental local development and climate adaptation plan for 2 refugee hosting districts in the Somali region of Ethiopia, targeting more than 200,000 refugees and 147 people within the host population, paving the way towards the gradual transformation of camps into integrated settlements. Also in Ethiopia, one more, Kabribeha Inclusion Roadmap 2023 up to 2027 is a 5-year plan for the establishment of an inclusive and prosperous community in Kabribeha town in the Somali region of Ethiopia. The backbone of this roadmap is the achievement of a unified, sustainable settlements for host and displaced communities with no parallel services system. Another, the Shirika plan in Kenya aims at transforming the refugee camps into integrated settlements, supporting the socio-economic inclusion of refugees and hosting communities in Garissa, Turkana, and urban areas. Since 2020, Mauritania has been working to integrate refugees into its service delivery systems, particularly in WASH program, in collaboration with the World Bank and other partners. At the last GRF, Mauritania expressed its goal of transforming Membraka into a sustainable human settlement, is currently working on urbanization strategy and the connection of the settlement into energy and water systems. Next step, the core group is currently working on establishing a roadmap to the GRF 2027. We are actively adopting a collaborative approach by working together with pledges that share synergies with our goals, such as the pledge on economic and social inclusion, HDP Nexus. We continue our collaborative efforts to bring together stakeholders and progress our goals in multilateral fora. One example is the Africa Union Urban Forum, which is open today in Addis Ababa. A side event by our colleague, UN Habitat, will address urban migration and displacement, hosting in the panel representatives from Ethiopia, Mauritania, Somalia, Cities Alliance, World Bank, and UNHCR. This session is dedicated to commitments made by governments on a transition to sustainable solutions and addresses the materializations of these solutions through the collaboration of governments and humanitarian and development actors. Advancing the concept of human settlement is a complex process. While outputs can often be assessed quickly, outcomes typically take time to materialize, particularly in urban development, which is inherently a long-term effort. We expect more responsibility sharing and emphasize the importance of a collaborative approach to effectively sharing and emphasize the importance of a collaborative approach to effectively address this challenge. Our priority in the coming months is to work together to turn policy place into measurable actions. As a core group, we are encouraged by commitments made so far, but let me underscore our most important message today. Join us. The colleagues would like to invite delegations that have made commitments towards sustainable human settlement to join the pledge group to jointly follow up and achieve concrete change by next GRF 2027. We look forward to shaping the human settlement in displacement setting together with you. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daga. I would now like to invite Mr. Stephen Jackson, the UN Resident Coordinator for Kenya, to present on the UN Common Pledge 2.0 on refugee inclusion. Mr. Jackson, the floor is yours. Mr. Jackson, I don't know whether you're with us.
I'm so sorry. Are you hearing me? Hello? Hello? Hello?
I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson, we don't really hear you very clearly. You're kind of fading in and out.
I'm so sorry. Are you hearing me now?
Given the fact that we seem to be having some issues with connectivity here with Mr. Jackson, perhaps in the interest of time, we'll move on till we resolve that technical problem. I would like to next welcome Ms. Anna Uzelak, Senior Policy Advisor at the Netherlands Minister of Foreign Affairs, who will speak on behalf of the Pledge on Economic Inclusion and Social Protection. Ms. Uzelak, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Assistant High Commissioner, Your Excellency. On behalf of the co-leaders of the Multi-Stakeholder Pledge on Economic Inclusion and Social Protection, I'm pleased to share with you the highlights of progress to date, alongside some of our future plans. Last December, as some of you may remember, we brought together a record 270 pledges by 88 states and over $1 billion in immediate pledged investments. Of all the multi-stakeholder pledges made, this is perhaps the most ambitious one to implement. But we hope also the one with the greatest potential for improving the lives of both displaced and their generous hosts. This is why we are particularly glad to be able to report that some 9 months later, our pledge group has already made progress on a number of initiatives in a diverse area of countries, ranging from Brazil, Ecuador, to Mauritania, to Ethiopia, and beyond. Let's make no mistake, this is a complex and very collaborative endeavor involving many stakeholders. It brings together previously often siloed interventions and tries to bridge sometimes quite deep institutional divides. The impact of this pledge may therefore not be visible overnight. This type of collaboration, as well as the accompanying law and policy reform, needs time. But we're already seeing concrete results across the globe. So allow me to share some highlights and some examples of those. We will be focusing here in this presentation on state-to-state collaboration and pledge matching for the interest of time, noting that we have many examples of investments also by the private sector and civil society that we hope to highlight at our next update. So we have just heard from the Honorable Representative of the Government of Ethiopia on behalf of the Human Settlements Pledge. We're proud to have Ethiopia as a key contributor to our pledge as well, and to see it undertaking a transformative agenda to enhance the inclusion of refugees in national systems, including digital connectivity and really important access to national IDs. These efforts are being supported by donors, including through the Netherlands-funded Prospects Partnership, and 4.2 million euros in new funding commitments from Germany since December 2023. Another important actor is the World Bank, whose ID4D program, facilitated by the IDA window for host communities and refugees, resulted in several thousands of urban refugees in Ethiopia being issued with digital refugee ID cards. In Ecuador, the new presidential decree to regularize Venezuelan refugees and migrants paves the way for implementing the government's GRF pledge to enhance their socioeconomic inclusion and contribution to local economies. Mauritania recently joined the pledge as a co-leader, with commitments that will secure the inclusion of refugees in the labor market and national social protection programs and services that have already received matching funding from the government of Germany. Uganda is currently being supported by the government of Denmark in strengthening its capacity to enhance refugee resilience and self-reliance while addressing the socioeconomic needs of host communities. As a part of its ambitious Shirika plan, Kenya has pledged to ensure comprehensive refugee access to social protection systems, its enhanced single registry, as well as to its labor market policies. In support of these 2 and 6 more countries in the Middle East and Horn of Africa, our own government of the Netherlands has contributed 800 million euros in new funding through phase 2 of its Prospect Partnership. Notable progress is already underway and includes planned creation of 75,000 employment opportunities by the end of 2024 towards the global goal of 200,000 by 2027. We also cannot stress enough the importance of financing and technical support that refugee hosting governments are receiving from international financing institutions and bilateral donors to create fiscal space in their national budgets, much needed for refugee socioeconomic inclusion. The already mentioned World Bank window for host communities and refugees is one of the critical instruments in this endeavor, and we sincerely hope that the window will continue to play its pivotal role in the years to come. And this is just the beginning. In addition to these notable financial and policy commitments, pledges are also supporting both donor and host state coordination of this work. A donors group in self-reliance has been co-convened by the US and the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation. This group will support pledge efforts and mobilize financing. We already have 9 state and foundation donors engaged and welcome participation by more. On the host country side, several countries in East Africa and the Great Lakes region, including Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, Djibouti, and Rwanda, are currently collaborating with UNHCR and WFP to develop frameworks for transitioning towards self-reliance and measuring this progress. An important element of our pledge is also a commitment to continued learning to enhance pledge implementation. A number of upcoming events, which should have been shared on the slide, will be supported by a variety of pledge members over the next quarter. We encourage, again, the engagement of various stakeholders, and we remain committed to coordination with other pledge platforms. So following my esteemed colleague and dear colleague, Daniel, I would say, please join us. Jointly, we can achieve inclusive development for shared prosperity despite the emergence of new challenges. And while we do that, let's not lose sight of our long-term vision for systemic change while also focusing on the incremental steps, pragmatic engagement, and financial commitments needed to achieve it. And most importantly, let's by no means lose sight of the people we are committed to supporting in this complex but so worthwhile task of ensuring dignified lives for all of those affected by displacement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Uzelak. We will now try to reconnect with Mr. Stephen Jackson, the UN Resident Coordinator in Kenya, who is scheduled to speak on the UN Common Pledge 2.0 on refugee inclusion. Mr. Jackson, can you hear us? And
I hear the moderator.
please go ahead.
Very good. So thank you, Paul, for before. Real honor to do all friends to talk about Common Pledge 2.0 and on refugee inclusion. So I just want to start with the essential point that refugees absolutely in line with, I would say, intrinsic to the 2030 commitment to leading.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Jackson, but you are not at all clear. Your voice is fading in and out. There seem to be quite a few breakages there.
I'm so sorry it worked perfectly in the rehearsal.
Well, while we're working on these issues for the umpteenth time, perhaps we can go on to the next speaker on the list. I would like to welcome on behalf of the Education Inclusion, Ms. Hala Kankan, Refugee Advisor to the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office of the United Kingdom. Ms. Kankan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. I'm very happy and delighted to be here today with you. As a former refugee and as during the during the GRF, I was the one who announced the education mega pledge on behalf on UNHCR and the other stakeholders of the pledge. Allow me today to reflect and update not only the progress of the pledge per se, but also on my progress and my refugee advisor fellows progress, as we also are learning and growing throughout the process. So the importance of the education mega pledge for me as a refugee myself, I left Syria when I was 17, and today I am 28 years old, and I'm here among you today. And the only thing that I have are my degrees. And my degrees are the only thing that rescued me and developed me and transformed my life to be here among you today and to speak with you. So the education for me is the most important aspect that transformed my life. And I think, and I believe it's the most important aspect to consider for the next generations. As youth and as the refugees and next generation refugees are the one who will be engaged in rebuilding their countries, being engaged in the peace talks to bring back peace and rebuild their countries and hopefully one day to go back. So part of the recent activities that I was part of is during the coordination with UNHCR, the World Bank, and other stakeholders. I was not only part of announcing the mega pledge, but also before and during the Global Refugee Forum and post the Global Refugee Forum. I was always part of the discussions, part of the coordination, part of with the other refugee advisors that we are providing our insights, our reflections, how we can multiply and how can we exceed our limits and how we can multiply the effect on the ground. So as you can see from the pictures during the pre-GRF, I was part during the Parliament event alongside the FCDO Minister and Mr. Andrew Mitchell. I gave a speech reflecting on my own journey as a refugee and what happened that day or that month and what are happening now. During the GRF, as I mentioned, I was privileged to announce the education mega pledge and I was part of also the coordination of the implementation of the education mega pledge alongside the key stakeholders like UNHCR, the World Bank, Education Countweit, and all others. It's today for me, it's always like hard to say that within the progress, the challenges are increasing. While we were last year in December together, we had all the promises, the plans, and unfortunately sometimes the world give us more challenges, and then that even our plans are not enough to fulfill the current challenges. So I understand the huge effort and the huge responsibility on UNHCR and other governments and stakeholders that we are facing here today. So I would like to conclude by saying I congratulate all the stakeholders and all the countries on their progress that they made, and we are really very lucky and to have such people like you who are supporting us, who are working to advocate for the refugees' rights, for the people who are really in need of your help wherever they are, and as a reminder that yes, we are sometimes feeling low, but we need to to put more efforts to maybe double the financing, double the efforts, double the coordination, and maximize all of this, because there is no any other way around it. The cost of failure and supporting these refugees, because the wars and the crises that happened are definitely are not their faults, and what happened, they are victims. But at the same time, we can change their life to be like me, a person who was a victim, who was receiving humanitarian aid. But today, with my degree, I'm able to contribute and to be an effective person. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kankan, not just for your intervention, but for really being a true role model and an inspiration to us all, and certainly wanting the benefits of education inclusion. I would like to now give the floor to Ms. Claudia Marotta, the Technical Officer in Public Health and Migration at the World Health Organization, speaking on behalf of the health and mental health and psychosocial support pledges. Over to you, Ms. Marotta.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, esteemed partners. It's an honor to present today on behalf of the Group of Friends of Health of the refugees and host communities. I will provide a brief update on the progress we are making towards ensuring access to health for refugees and other displaced people, striving for a more inclusive and supporting world. The Global Compact on Refugees has been instrumental in ensuring that, also from a health perspective, no one is left behind, especially the most vulnerable. And on this, I want to thank Ms. Assistant High Commissioner for giving such a relevant example in her remarks about health inclusion. At the Global Refugees Forum 2023, two multi-stakeholder pledges related to health were launched. The first one on inclusion refugees inclusion in health system, national health systems, and the second one to enhance mental health and psychological support. We witnessed an extraordinary level of commitment globally, with 153 pledges focused on health system inclusion from 125 entities, among whom 45 member states, including 27 low and middle income refugees hosting countries. In total, these pledges aim to have a positive impact on over 37 million people. Additionally, 113 pledges focused on MHPSS, supported by 88 entities, including 26 member states, are set to reach over 13 million people. Our goal is to realize these pledges in at least 15 refugees hosting countries by 2027, with support from financial, material, and technical resources. Next slide, please. Significant progress has already been made. This year, World Health Assembly side event hosted by Kingdom of Morocco advanced global commitment to refugees and migrant health, while the high-level meeting on non-communicable diseases emphasized the inclusion and the active participation of refugees. And these are just few examples on our ongoing efforts. Looking ahead, several high-level events are on our horizon. The UNGA 79 side event hosted by Egypt and Saudi Arabia on September the 26th in New York, we focus on antibiotic access for refugees and migrants. And additionally, a panel discussion at the next World Health Summit in Berlin will explore the nexus between climate change, health, displacement, and migration. Next slide, please. In the area of mental health, the adoption of the World Health Assembly resolution last May marks a significant milestones. This resolution emphasizes strengthening mental health and psychological support before, during, and after crisis, including armed conflict and disaster. Through the multi-stakeholder pledge, we have been advancing the interagency minimum service package for MHPSS, which has been introduced in various settings since the GRF, including the Sudan refugees response. Capacity building workshop in Chad, Ethiopia, South Sudan, in which UN agency, NGOs, government collaborate, further illustrate the ongoing efforts to enhance mental health and psychological support for refugees. Next slide, please. The World Health Organization plays a crucial role in these efforts through the Refugees and Migrant Health System Review. These reviews, conducted in collaboration with the local Ministry of Health and partners, aim to develop long-term, evidence-based health system intervention to build on existing capacity while addressing gaps and opportunities. To date, we have been implemented this review in Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Estonia, Jordan, Thailand, and Uganda, with upcoming reviews in South Africa and Chile planned by the end of this year. And you can find report on the WHO webpage. In conclusion, the journey we are on is challenging, but pledges and the progress made underscore the importance of our collective efforts in ensuring that refugees and other forcibly displaced persons have access to quality health services and all the support they need for their mental well-being. I thank all the stakeholders for their continued dedication and collaboration. Together with sustained effort, we will achieve our ambition goal by 2027. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marotta. And now, in a moment of great suspense, ladies and gentlemen, we will one last time try to connect with Mr. Stephen Jackson, the UN Resident Coordinator in Kenya, who is scheduled to present the UN Common Pledge 2.0 on refugee inclusion. Mr. Jackson, are you online?
Madam Moderator, I am online. Do you hear me?
Loud and clear. Over to you.
Fantastic. I'm so sorry. We tested the link earlier, but and it was fine. We're being hit with gremlins now. But a great honor to be with you and to talk about this common pledge on refugee inclusion, which, as I said a couple of times before, we see as intrinsic to the overall commitment of the 2030 Agenda to leave no one behind. So to state the obvious, the pledge for us in UNCT Kenya, but in 50 other country teams, this pledge elevates displacement as a core area to address not just for UNHCR, but for all UN agencies across the UN country teams in our interactions with donors, with governments, with development partners. And for us, inclusion means two things primarily. First, it means concretely including activities that support refugees and indeed host communities together in the body of our United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation frameworks, those overarching frameworks that govern the contributions of all members of the UN country team, also in our humanitarian response plans and our overviews. The second thing is it means including refugees in national data sets, in budgets, in development plans, in service delivery systems of the host countries, supporting the countries that we serve to do that, including refugees in national systems, in short. So it's been for us in UNCT Kenya, and I want to talk about the Kenyan reality now, a really powerful tool, this pledge, to help us accomplish a number of things. The first, again, to state the obvious, is to ensure that support to refugees and host communities is the responsibility of the whole UN country team, not just that of UNHCR, though UNHCR continues to lead us in that with the support of resident coordinators like myself. And so efforts in Kenya have been buttressed by this global commitment and have brought to the fore a whole of UN system commitment and collaboration. That's meant more strategic engagement and efforts on refugee inclusion in advocacy, programming, analysis, common messaging, strategic analysis. So overall, it's a tool to advance the 2030 Agenda at the national level. If we go to the second slide, because I want to try and be brief since I've taken so much of your time, the UN Common Pledge here in Kenya, what achievements have we seen? So first of all, the integration of the refugee perspective and of the perspective of the Global Compact into our common country analysis, into the body of the cooperation framework, into our data reporting under UN Info, the relevant refugee markers being brought into the whole of our work here. Secondly, joint programming. So a number of speakers before me have very kindly referenced the Shirika Plan, this extraordinarily ambitious plan being developed and rolled out by the government of Kenya to unite the interests of refugees and host communities here in this great country. Behind that, we in UN Kenya, and drawing on the strength that this pledge gives us, have been devising a joint program of support across more than a dozen UN entities to help Kenya carry forward Shirika. And this is matched with our ambitious targets under our multi-partner trust fund and accessing vertical funds within the UN, like the Peacebuilding Fund. The pledge has helped us to bring greater complementariness within the UNCT around both programming and resource mobilization, and it's helped us be much better aligned in terms of our joint advocacy and our joint messaging, supporting UNHCR and supporting government to bring Shirika to the forefront. So I'd just conclude, Madam Moderator, because I do want to be brief, given how much of your time I've already taken, by joining with the others who have said before me, join with us. Here on the ground in Kenya, we have this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to carry forward Shirika, to change forever and for good the manner in which the refugee docket is handled. The common pledge is really giving us a lodestar to aim towards, and we'd invite all partners, government, private sector, international, national, civil society, to join together under this pledge to carry forward refugee inclusion as part of our push towards the SDGs. Thanks so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson, not just for your presentation, but for your perseverance in hanging in there. Thank you very much. It's a true demonstration of your commitment. Thank you to all of the speakers for your really excellent and rich presentations. We will now proceed to the discussion portion of the briefing, and I hand over to Ambassador Bonafont to moderate this session. Over to you, Ambassador.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Haute Commissaire adjointe. Just a remark on what we just heard. This shows three things in my view. Number one, the importance of the multi-stakeholder dimension of our work. Number two, the fact that UN organizations and states have to work hand in hand if we want to be efficient. And number three, that host countries are very often countries which are just the neighbors of the countries where refugees come from. And I think about the very, very big burden that is on countries such as Bangladesh, such as Chad, such as Iran, such as Turkey, such as Jordan, such as Lebanon, and so many others. And therefore, solidarity has to be a keyword for the work we have to do on inclusion. Nous allons maintenant donner la parole aux participants. Si vous souhaitez intervenir, merci de lever votre pancarte nominative. Et pour les participants en ligne qui souhaitent intervenir, veuillez indiquer dans le chat votre nom et l'organisation que vous représentez, ainsi que lever la main pour que nous puissions vous donner la parole au moment venu. Nous ferons de notre mieux pour prendre en compte autant d'interventions que possible dans le temps imparti pour cette session. Grâce à la discipline des sessions précédentes, nous sommes presque à l'heure. Pour cela, nous vous prions de bien vouloir limiter vos remarques à 3 minutes afin de laisser du temps aux autres participants. Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais d'abord donner la parole à l'OIT. Ayalo.
Thank you, Ambassador. And Madam Assistant High Commissioner, Excellencies and colleagues, good afternoon. We're on behalf of the ILO, just wanted to note that we are quite pleased that the GRF briefing is being hosted here in our offices for the third time this year. Today's thematic focus in particular is extremely important to us. Inclusion and equality in the labor market are fundamental to the ILO's mandate. When any group is excluded, it results in negative outcomes for everyone, leading only to human suffering. And without decent work, there cannot be decent life. Therefore, the ILO is taking steps to implement the pledges and commitments made at the GRF, and I'd like to highlight a few examples. During the second informal briefing, a representative from a disabled refugee-led organization called for disability inclusion in the GRF pledges. Let's embrace the call for an inclusion revolution that was made at the 2024 Paralympics opening. We all have something to gain from inclusion. Under our pledge to advance equality and non-discrimination in labor market access and labor protection in forced displacement contexts, the ILO committed to developing and sharing training tools and practices on disability inclusion and gender equality in refugee settings. As part of the third Global Disability Summit, the ILO also intends to make a commitment to support the inclusion of refugees with disabilities, for which we foresee partnering with the International Disability Alliance. Earlier this year, the ILO launched Work-Wise Youth, a guide to youth rights at work, to raise awareness of youth rights, of focusing on those in forced displacement contexts. And to address the specific barriers to accessing decent work that young refugees face, the ILO is supporting refugee-led organizations in Ethiopia and Uganda with financial and technical assistance to implement innovative job creation initiatives. Additionally, the ILO has collaborated with UNICEF, UNHCR, and the government of the Netherlands to ensure young refugees are meaningfully engaged in decision-making processes affecting their lives, such as at the EcoSoc Youth Forum and the upcoming Summit of the Future. These global events have been used to advocate for targeted programs that help refugee youth achieve decent work and self-reliance. The ILO, together with UNHCR and the Pontifical Javeriana University in Colombia, supported the Ministry of Labor to develop a guide titled Refugee and Migrant Workers Have Rights in Colombia. This newly launched guide aims to inform and empower refugee and migrant workers by outlining their labor rights, including employment regulations, kinds of contracts, and remote work options. Such collaborative efforts across agencies and institutions can meaningfully support the integration of refugees into host communities' labor markets and, again, foster self-reliance. In Kenya, the ILO continues to promote pathways for economic inclusion and social protection in alignment with the commitments of the UNCT under the framework of the UN Common Pledge. For instance, the ILO is targeting urban refugees in Nairobi and Mombasa using the ILO's approach to inclusive market systems to create decent job opportunities while extending social protection to selected value chains with high shares of refugees. Further, under the Prospects framework, the ILO and partners developed a national roadmap to implement the national strategy for extending social protection coverage to workers in informal and rural economy. And finally, the ILO contributed to improving accessibility for refugees to skill recognition services. Again, very pleased that you're all here today. We're so delighted to host you, and we look forward to our continued efforts. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup et merci d'avoir respecté le temps de parole, même si j'espère que les interprètes ont pu suivre votre rythme aussi rapide que précis. Je passe maintenant la parole à la délégation du Japon. Japon.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And I would like to join you in celebrating the great achievement of the Refugee Olympic and Paralympics teams as a good example of inclusion. Japan has begun to implement its pledge made at the GRF in many parts of the world. At the GRF, Foreign Minister Kamikawa announced the support for the establishment of UNHCR's Emergency Training Center for Humanitarian Personnel in Africa, and 2 training sessions have already been held in Nairobi and Dakar. In Iran, Japan and UNHCR have launched an education and health project for refugees and host communities, and JICA has sent Japanese experts to Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia to work with government, local authorities, and humanitarian organizations to support refugees, displaced persons, and host communities. As a co-leader of the Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus Multi-Stakeholder Pledge Initiative, Japan aims to contribute to the promotion of a full-of-society approach and facilitate the matching of the needs of refugee host countries. In this regard, the mission of Japan in Geneva will host a roundtable next Tuesday on September 10th. This time, it will be co-organized not only by the HDP Nexus, but also by the Agriculture, Food System, and Food Security Multi-Stakeholder Initiative. Given the dire food situation, agriculture is an important area of intervention to address the crisis in a more sustainable way in collaboration with development actors. Thus, the roundtable will be co-arranged by the leaders of the Agriculture Multi-Stakeholder Pledge, Norway, FAO, and WFP. And of course, UNDP, co-leader of the HDP Nexus, and UNHCR. We invite refugee hosting countries as panelists, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Uganda, to learn more about the situation on the ground and the challenges they face. The Global Compact on Refugees articulates that the burden and responsibility of hosting refugees should be shared by the international community. We therefore hope that this will be an opportunity for the international community to consider future support. Online participation is open, so please contact the Japanese mission if you are interested in participating in this roundtable on next Tuesday. Inside Japan, a follow-up meeting of GRF with the Japanese private sector, business, academia, and NGO will be held on September 11th. In this way, through the HDP Nexus approaches, Japan will continue to promote a whole-of-society approach and facilitate the opportunity to expand the possibility of potential matching towards the next year's high-level officials meeting. I thank you very much.
Je vous remercie également. Je passe maintenant la parole à la délégation de l'Ouganda.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Reuven, for your very good remarks. And congratulations, Nicholas. You can count on my delegation for support. Chair, we were very intentional when we're coming towards the 2023 GRF. When we pledged enhancing self-reliance as our first pledge, we were being optimistic and ambitious for refugees as far as our policies are concerned. But this is only possible if and when our partners match us with the requisite financial support. And Reuven, true, inclusion is more than just keeping the doors open. But actually, inclusion starts only after you've opened your door. And we should not be able to separate or forget the first important role of ability to open the door. And then only that can we be able to speak about inclusion. And inclusion is a myriad of many policies that range from education, health, movement, employment. And listening to Ethiopia, to Netherlands, online UN City, and WHO, it is true that it crosses from
facendo
education.
pulizie?
I hope my minutes are covered. Thank you. So yes, it includes education, it includes health, and my government, Uganda, we are very proud that from set-go, when we started taking on refugees, we have done inclusion from set-go. But we should tell the whole story when it comes to inclusion. We should not cherry pick. Inclusion is a good thing for refugees. And indeed, it gives them a source and a real possibility of livelihood. But just like we're speaking at the World Bank meeting before this, we have to tell the whole story. With inclusion comes responsibilities and consequences. We have seen the real consequences as a government, Uganda. We have included refugees in our schools. We have put them in our health systems. They use our roads. They are free to move. They can get jobs. They can open businesses. But hey, do you know the truth on ground? We are not seeing financial support matches for that. So as we speak here, calling on governments to be able to open and include, then we should all collectively, with the international responsibility we carry on our shoulders, be able to match those societies. When the beautiful lady from France started speaking, I asked my colleague, is that a fashion designer? Is she a model? Very beautiful, very eloquent. And she's speaking about real things, about Ukrainian refugees being able to fit in, take on jobs, and then listen, be able to transit through languages. We get refugees from DRC. They can't speak English. They can't speak our local languages. But what she was saying sounded like a real privilege that doesn't happen in our backyards. So inclusion goes beyond asking countries that are hosting to include. It starts with all of us, and all of us includes doing your part of your bargain, contribute, join the whole team of multi-stakeholder, but the most important thing is match the policy pledges and do that which you're called to do as an international responsibility. Uganda is proud that we are contributing to this, and history will be kind to us. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour cette déclaration tout à fait puissante. L'Ordre souverain de Malte.
Merci, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur, Madame la Haut-Commissaire assistante. L'Ordre de Malte travaille dans plus de 30 pays avec le HCR et voudrait remercier le HCR pour tout son excellent travail et pour cette collaboration. L'an dernier, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur, vous vous souvenez, nous avions organisé, et nous étions très heureux de vous avoir comme un des panélistes, un événement parallèle au Global Compact on Refugees. Et cette année, le 16 octobre, mercredi 16 octobre, de 13 à 14h30, nous allons organiser avec la mission permanente du Saint-Siège, la mission de l'Italie et peut-être d'autres missions, avec la participation aussi de Vincent Cochetel du HCR, un événement parallèle sur migrants, réfugiés et trafic de personnes, migrants, refugees, migrant smuggling, and trafficking in persons on Wednesday, the 16th of October, from 1 to 2:30 p.m. And that will be in room 5, en salle 5 du Palais. Alors, merci, mais en tout cas, nous suivons de près les travaux que vous faites et nous serons heureux de continuer à collaborer avec vous. Merci beaucoup, Madame et Monsieur l'ambassadeur.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur l'ambassadeur. J'ai maintenant le UNHCR Advisory Board, Colombian Migrants and Exiles for Peace Collective.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, Honorable Representative. I am Mete Vera, a Colombian refugee couple based in Mexico. I am a member of MECOPA, an organization led by refugees that support displaced individuals across Latin America. I am honored to represent the advisory board to the UNHCR task team on engagement with the organization led by displaced and stateless persons. Today, more than 120 million people around the world are forcibly displaced, reflecting a global challenge in a context where the social fabric is increasingly fragmented by multiple crises. This reality requires an approach that goes beyond peaceful coexistence. It calls for collaborative and transformative strategies. As tension emerge and intensify conflicts between local population and displaced people, the lack of access to fundamental rights further exacerbates vulnerabilities and full exclusion and xenophobia. All stakeholders, including states and displaced and stateless persons and the organization led by them, must all come together to foster meaningful encounters and build collaboration between people forced to flee and local communities. States plays a key role in combating the criminalization and discrimination tied to displacement and humanitarian work. And this begins by recognizing that displaced people can and should be agents of change, and that their voices, contributions, and skills are essential to our common prosperity. We must promote inclusive policies that ensure equitable access to fundamental rights and recognize that refugees contribute to improving our communities. Since the GNRF in 2023, there has been a notable advancement in the global commitment to meaningful refugee participation. For example, 112 new pledges, including a component of refugee involvement, bringing the total to 180 pledges since 2019, with 39 states submitting pledges. Furthermore, since the last December, almost 40 pledges specifically support organizations led by displaced and stateless persons. The advisory board emphasized the importance of a comprehensive approach to humanitarian response. We commend the positive steps taken by countries such as Brazil, Germany, Switzerland, Australia, the US, Canada, and New Zealand in establishing refugee advisory mechanisms at the national level. These existing advisory boards, including the UNHCR, have demonstrated the fundamental value of consultative and collaborative approaches. It is crucial to engage refugees and their organization beyond the design phase of pledges, actively involving them in the implementation process to drive sustainable development and strengthen community resilience. For conclusion, this initiative to thrive is essential to reinforce partnership. We cannot allow our difference to divide us. We must collaborate to build an inclusive society based on mutual respect and solidarity, where everyone, regardless of where we come from, can find a common home and flourish together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now pass the floor to the European Union.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I would like to reiterate our commitment of the European Union to the process. We are already implementing and working on implementation of all of our 15 pledges that we committed last December. And we would like to welcome Nicolas in his new position. And this is just to really reiterate our commitment. And we are looking forward to our technical meetings that we are having planned at the end of September. We are really willing already to report on the progress. So just the technicalities that need to be solved. Thank you very much.
Je vous remercie. Je passe maintenant la parole à World Vision.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, girls and boys. My name is Antonella Bernardini. I work for World Vision, but I'm delivering this statement on behalf of the Initiative for Child Rights in the Global Compact. It is an honor for us to provide an update on the Child Rights Multi-Stakeholder Pledge, and we are thrilled that child rights are ranked among the top 10 areas that received the most pledges in the 2023 GRF. This is a significant development from the first GRF and a testament to our collective commitment to children's rights. There are now 318 child rights pledges, though not all yet linked to the multi-stakeholder child rights pledge. Pledges are diverse and cover a broad geographical spread. They include commitments to child protection and child participation, which are unique to the Child Rights Pledge, as well as commitments to social protection, health, education, sports, and more, integrating child-sensitive approaches in other pledges. It is particularly encouraging that states made 91 child-focused pledges with significant commitments to strengthening national child protection systems, including displaced children in national systems, supporting unaccompanied children, and other transformative initiatives. We appreciate the efforts of everyone involved and are happy to work with you and make these commitments a reality for children. Every 6 months leading to the GRF 2027, we will convene stakeholders aligned with the Child Rights Pledge, and together with the government of Greece, we organized the first such meeting in July, during which around 80 people online and in person discussed progress, challenges, and solutions on implementing child-focused pledges. We will work with children, child participation experts, youth groups, and advisory boards, including the UNHCR Refugee Expert Advisory Board, to establish a mechanism to strengthen child participation at the global level. And we will offer guidance on mainstreaming of child participation in all pledges. With the UNHCR, we will follow up with pledging entities on key pledges with regional and country-level collaborations and opportunities for matching pledges between host and donor countries. In closing, we continue to encourage more meaningful pledges for children, including at the country level, with UNHCR playing a supportive role. We encourage pledging entities to tag the Child Rights Pledge, if not done so already. And while linking closely with other pledging initiatives, the Child Rights Pledge is a home for commitments with and for children. And by tagging it, you can be part of an important space for connecting, peer learning, and tracking pledge implementation for children. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour cette intervention qui clôt la liste des orateurs sur le parterre et qui la clôt sur une note importante qui est celle de l'espoir pour les enfants et de l'importance pour la communauté internationale de veiller à ce que les enfants réfugiés ne soient pas privés d'avenir et puissent construire une vie de dignité. Je vous remercie et j'ai l'honneur de repasser la parole à Madame la Haute-Commissaire adjointe pour fournir quelques réponses et nous faire part de ses remarques conclusives.
Merci, Excellence. And a very, very big thank you to all of you, really, to all of you participants here, both here and of course online as well, for the incredible contributions that you have made. Just a few, I will not be able to do justice to all of the interventions, but I will try in the time permitted. To ILO, thank you very much for hosting us. We are deeply grateful for really for the fact that we are able to convene these meetings in your premises. And we hope to obviously continue this for the future, the forthcoming events as well. But also particularly a big thank you to all the work that ILO does to facilitate the access of refugees to labor markets wherever they are. We are deeply grateful for all the work that you do there. And I particularly appreciate the Inclusion Revolution slogan. I think that's certainly something that I will be taking on myself going forward when talking about refugee inclusion. To Japan, to the representative, thank you so much for all the work that Japan is doing, particularly in regard to the HDP Nexus. We are extremely Grateful for all the hard work that you put into this. I know a lot of work also happens behind the scenes in mobilizing both the member states, but also other stakeholders to really focus on this pledge. And as you have pointed out, you are hosting a roundtable here in Geneva on the 10th of September, and with a particular focus on agriculture. And we certainly hope that all, if not, well, many, if not all of the participants here will contribute to that. To Uganda, Mary, yes, I know, and you are always one of the most compelling interveners in all of the meetings that we host. Yes, absolutely. Inclusion is not just about inclusion. It's first about opening doors. And it is also true that 75% of the world's refugees are hosted by low-income and middle-income countries, which all have internal challenges, fairly egregious internal challenges. But despite that, they maintain open borders policies, and we are deeply grateful. But words are not enough. I absolutely agree with you that actions have to follow words. And we strongly support your call for the matching pledges in terms of the policy commitments that refugee hosting countries have made so well and so eloquently at the Global Refugee Forum, not just the one in 2023, but certainly also the one in 2019. And we will do our utmost to ensure that that call is heeded. L'Ordre de Malte, merci Excellence pour votre intervention et aussi pour la collaboration entre l'Ordre de Malte et l'HCR, non pas seulement ici à Genève, bien sûr, mais avec toutes nos opérations partout dans le monde. Et je vous remercie. Et surtout aussi, je prends note de l'événement le 16 octobre auquel assistera notre envoyé spécial sur la migration dans la Méditerranée. Donc, voilà. On anticipe avec beaucoup d'enthousiasme cet événement. To the Refugee Advisory Board, I do want to thank you really for the incredibly inspiring remarks always made by members of the Refugee Advisory Boards in any of the meetings that we are in. And I always say this, one word from you is worth more than 1,000 from me, because many of you have the lived experience that I'm a UN bureaucrat. I can talk about this for days on end, but it's never going to be as compelling as you coming forward and talking about what your needs are and how they should be met. And we do value really your interventions and the importance that you bring to these processes. To the EU, again, thank you very much for your commitments, for the pledges, the 15 pledges that you have made. And again, we look forward to working with you on these and also on other your contributions that you make to other operations outside of these pledges as well. And to World Vision, yes, to end on a positive note, thank you very much for highlighting the issues of child protection. We don't talk about it enough. And I am very glad that you really focused on that and on the pledges that have been made, and also positively on the progress that has been made in some areas in this regard. We still have a lot of work to do in that domain, but we are grateful that agencies like World Vision are at the helm driving these initiatives forward. Overall, Excellence, I just want to say, I think what I really have gathered from these different interventions is really a message of hope. A clarion call, certainly, for matching of the pledges that have been made by refugee hosting countries, but overall also much of focus on the positive progress that has been made on refugee inclusion worldwide. And I'm grateful for that as well. So thank you very much. So before concluding, and I noticed that we really have caught up on time, before concluding, I would like to take this opportunity to announce that UNHCR will organize an event linked to the Summit of the Future, and some of you have mentioned this, which, as you all know, is being held in New York later this month. This event aims to advance the implementation of key multi-stakeholder pledges made at the GRF that reinforce key actions of the Pact of the Future as well. I'm delighted to announce that Colombia will sponsor the event, which we hope will help bring the objectives of the Compact to the summit and also bring the key discussions around the Pact to the broader universe of GCR stakeholders. We will circulate further details about this event to you very soon and look forward to your participation and that of your capitals as well. Nicola also provided me, because he very helpfully shortened his own intervention in the interest of time, but he had wanted to also inform you that we will be providing more details on pledge reporting and stock taking events planned for 2025 at the next informal briefing in December. So this is just to take note of the fact that there will be a much more concrete information being provided on in regard to the implementation of the pledges as well. Finally, I would really like to thank everyone for your engagement today, particularly you, Mr. Ambassador. And on this note, I would like to conclude this third quarterly informal briefing on the GCR. Thank you very much. Merci.